First, we have to discuss what the story of Poppy Playtime is, and if it can relate to anything currently in the FNAF world. What we know about the company that seems to be the main antagonist of Poppy Playtime series, called Playtime Co., is also basically the story of the game. They seemingly hit it big in the 1960s with the release of Poppy, the world's first truly intelligent toy. This Poppy doll put them on the map, marking them as the king of toys until dolls fell out of style in the late 70s, causing Playtime Co. to have to update their repertoire and come out with newer toys like Huggy Wuggy and Candy Cat, among others. This helped them bring back some of the business they lost, but this didn't seem to be enough. They soon began seemingly experimenting with more realistic dolls in an attempt to recreate Poppy's success, because let's face it, even if there was a truly intelligent version of Poppy, not every version of Poppy would be like that. Only the one they used in commercials and later we release at the end of that chapter, just like how ice cream in commercials is really mashed potatoes. Yeah, sorry. Sentient toys, however, are nothing new to FNAF, so William wouldn't really feel like a stranger. Of course, we also have to decide what version of William comes over. If it was William, Springtrap, Scrap Trap, Burn Trap, Glitch Trap, or maybe even Dave Miller, William's alias while he was on the run and underground in the Silver Eyes novel. Because the Springtrap personality or persona is very different to the William Afton persona. Springtrap is a very aggressive personality compared to William, who is sneaky and calculated as opposed to Springtrap's direct approach. So assuming that since this story revolves around people more than the toys, who are definitely instrumental but not as important like they would be in FNAF, in this case we would be going with William Afton specifically, because he needs to be able to sneak around and do villainous things, whereas Springtrap would likely just end up being a toy. Well, actually, if we think about it, maybe we can work two versions into this series. So, if Afton was in Poppy Playtime, he would probably just end up being a higher up at the company. Just because he doesn't seem like a man who sees living doll or truly intelligent doll and then doesn't do anything about it. Okay, look, if Afton's coming over, his story has to come over as well. It can't be just some random dude who's named William Afton. So he would have to have the story of wanting to bring his kids back. So, after hearing this, he would start at the company and eventually work his way up. By the time the actual game comes around, I'm guessing that he'd be pretty high up, like on the board of directors or shareholders or whoever it is at least. But I think that he wouldn't be CEO or close to that, because he doesn't seem like that type. He'd have worked his way up because he doesn't seem like the kind of person who likes working for other people, you know, like he likes to be in control. Hence why his targets for his crimes are kids, since they're easier to control. So he'd be a higher up at the company, and not the top because he wouldn't want all that attention, and it would probably have been his idea to try and recreate the success of Poppy with new toys, since his goal of bringing his children, or at least the crying one, back would kind of still need to be there for this character to make sense. Like I was explaining earlier, he kind of need to have that, otherwise it's not William, it's just some guy. Although everything associated with the pizzeria in his story could just be a separate entity within the Poppy Playtime world. As a reasonable extension of William being the one who suggests these experiments, I'm also going to be guessing he's the one conducting them, since if nobody can do it right, you gotta do it yourself when it comes to creating human toys. That sounds weird. This then leads him to create Experiment 1006 that then escapes, like we see during the events of Poppy Playtime Chapter 1. So Afton's voice would be the one that we heard on the tapes. This would probably mean that he's actually dead, because, you know. But no. So instead, since he knew about the risks, he would take those into consideration and would probably have a backup plan if anyone or anything ended up going haywire. Probably something that turned himself into a toy or something similar to give him enhanced strength and stamina, as well as just keep him alive longer. No longer needing to eat and sleep. Thus, Springtrap is born. Well, the Springtrap that would be in this universe. So here, Springtrap wouldn't really be an animatronic suit that Afton got spring locked in, but rather the toy that Afton would have turned himself into. willingly, might I add. But they'd still remain largely the same, since both have Afton's organic body inside them, yet still enhancing it in some way. So after we knock down Huggy Wuggy, we go to release Poppy, thus ending the first chapter. My idea would be that this is actually what William wanted all along. Or maybe not what he wanted specifically, but something that would draw him out. Knowing that the only true working human toy hybrid is actually out and has been released from its prison would certainly entice the man that just wants to use this technology to bring back his son to come out. So in chapter 2, if William was in Poppy Playtime, he could reasonably be the villain that we'd be fighting. Experiment 1007, if you will. So he'd come after Poppy so that he could study her and make sure he knows how to bring his son back. Well, maybe. However, he would soon learn that the secret to recreating Poppy was that the person becoming the toy would have to be willing to do so, like Poppy's human and William were. Yeah, because William willingly turned himself into a toy to survive Huggy, he's also one of these perfect human toy hybrids, meaning that to become a toy, the person would have to be alive, which would send William spiraling and probably turn him into the Springtrap we all know and love, but also hate. For me, mostly hate. He needs to die. Hell, you know what? Just for literary significance, he may even just set fire to the Playtime Co. facility just out of anger. Because honestly, that would make sense given the history of this character in the other franchise. We'd obviously end up surviving this fire though, and Springtrap would later become the main antagonist, while we spent our time fighting off the other experiments that escaped. So we'd have 5 additional chapters, at least after chapter 2, where we'd fight experiments 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, and 1005, assuming that that's the scheme that they'd be going with. But the whole time, we'd wonder why Afton didn't kill us directly, and instead just tried to crash the building down on us, which in reality gave us plenty of time to escape, which would also be a big mystery of the game and the ongoing chapters. He could have had us by the throat and then let go to run away, and we wouldn't know until the final chapter that the reason is because we are either Afton's child or the toy of one of his kids, which is why he released us and gave us a chance to leave, resulting in a final battle between father and son where he realized that it's him or us, meaning he doesn't care if we're his son. He's seen how fragile this form can be and is now in the form of Springtrap known as Scrap Trap. We end the fight by burning down the building with us inside as well, alluding to FNAF 6, killing all of us, or at least it seems that way, because, you know, he always comes back. In the final chapter, we get one final scene of something crawling out of the burnt down ruins of whatever warehouse we were in that stored all the Playtime Co. toys. And as we zoom in, we see bunny ears. And the most recent form of Springtrap, Burn Trap, emerges from the rubble, and the scene cuts to black. Poppy Playtime may be over, but Burn Trap's playtime is just beginning. That sounds kind of creepy, considering how he wants to lure kids to the back of pizza joints.
Number 10, Animal Crossing. When it comes to the peaceful and relaxing world of Animal Crossing, this crossover idea might seem kind of crazy, but Animal Crossing also has a bunch of fans that support a more secretive and sinister lore narrative, and FNAF would fit in just at home when it comes to that. Add in the fact that we already have a lot of anthropomorphic villagers, including a mystery character who calls themselves Zipper T Bunny, who visits your town, city, or island around Easter each year, dressed up in a bunny suit, and you can actually see the zipper at the back, and this just seems like something that could make a lot of sense. Number 9, Silent Hill. Silent Hill boasts of all kinds of grotesque nightmare-like creatures and characters, but you know what it does not have? FNAF animatronics. The fact that both of these franchises are horror game franchises means that a crossover here could make some sense. Sure, they're two very different kinds of horror games set in very different worlds, but I don't think that should stop us. I also would just love to see Silent Hill take on our antagonistic FNAF characters. Odds are good that in the world of Silent Hill, Freddy and all of his friends would only appear more gruesome. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more like it, be sure to show us by giving this video a thumbs up. Every time you give a video a thumbs up, it creates a little bit of FNAF DLC content for some other game. Number 8, Rabbids. Listen, I know how this one sounds, but no one thought Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle would wow anyone. And then, hey, guess what? It did. And now it's getting a sequel. What is even happening? It just makes me wonder what other franchises could be mashed up with Rabbids and end up creating some sort of bizarre smash hit. FNAF definitely has that star power. And perhaps in the game, the Rabbids could have wandered into that world and basically be fleeing our animatronic foes in Freddy's. Admittedly, I'm not sure how this one would work, but I know that I would be weirdly interested in finding out. Number 7, Fall Guys. I know the number for Fall Guys have dropped off since it was initially released, but I still love this game and all of its skins because there are just so many and already game-based collaboration ones as well. Fall Guys would definitely be a great one to have FNAF themed content incorporated into. Maybe even have a whole FNAF themed season. And this could be a great way to help bring players back to boost their numbers as well. It's a win-win. Number 6, Skyrim. I mean, I know this one is kind of ridiculous, but we'd still all be into it, wouldn't we? Many gamers love the Elder Scrolls games, and many gamers love Five Nights at Freddy's. So put them together and you get, well, you undoubtedly get something super weird, I'm not gonna lie. But I wouldn't doubt that someone has already attempted to create some kind of unofficial mashup of these two things. Skyrim being a Bethesda game means that there are tons of mods available for you to choose from for those interested in kind of changing up their game. Mods are made by fans the world over, and I am sure, therefore, that a FNAF mod already exists, or multiple. But mods can also be glitchy, so having some kind of Skyrim or Elder Scrolls crossover that was more official would be even cooler and safer for your save files. If we could get that. Also, wow, I cannot believe that Skyrim is almost 10 years old. What is happening? In a few months, it's gonna be 10. November 11th, 2021. Skyrim turns 10. I remember taking off literally the weekend from work to play that game. Number 5, Apex Legends. Apex Legends has been taking Twitch by storm when it comes to being one of the most streamed games. Apex Legends has a colorful cast like other battle royale games that compete with this title for the most plays, views, and streams. But Apex Legends tends to focus on team battle royale victories. Not that other games don't have that or don't focus on team battle royale elements. It's just a huge part of this battle royale style game, so I gotta bring it up. I foresee an awesome crossover where fans of both Apex and FNAF could play as various teams of animatronics, like toy animatronics, funtime animatronics, nightmare, glamrock, or original, or even break up, of course, those various teams of animatronics to form your own teams that are unique, that are a blend of these different character groups. Which animatronic group would reign supreme and become known as the most legendary? Well, you'd have to play to find out. Number 4, Sims. Sims is a game where you build your dream home and your dream family. You can spend hours crafting these characters and the architecture and all of the interior design in their homes, or you could make your own Freddy's Pizzeria. Now, I feel like Pizzeria Simulator already sort of lends to the style of gameplay that we see in Sims. I mean, both are simulators. So how awesome would it be to have a crossover between Sims and FNAF, both games that have simulation in them, to give us a hyper-realistic pizzeria simulator where you could custom make your own animatronics and employees and craft your own restaurant franchise of your nightmares. Create even your own horrific lore. It honestly sounds like a brilliant idea to me. I don't know, what do you think? I know we already had Pizzeria Simulator, but I'm just saying, like, this would be on another level because this would be like Sims Pizzeria Simulator, so it would be a lot more detailed. And we could still incorporate like mini games into it. I think that could be possible. I'm sure there's a way to do that in Sims. I mean, you can switch to see like your Sims view. I feel like whenever I take selfies in Sims, I feel like I'm kind of playing a mini game. Not really, but you know what I mean. Number 3, Dead by Daylight. This one just makes too much sense for it to not happen, especially as Dead by Daylight also recently teamed up with another horror-based game franchise that is super popular, Resident Evil. survival. So the question becomes, where is the crossover between Dead by Daylight and FNAF? And more importantly, when will it exist? When can we expect it? Hopefully soon. If you've somehow missed out on this game, which was initially released in 2016, it's a 1 versus 4 online multiplayer survival horror game where one person plays as the killer, trying to kill off the other players who play as survivors and are basically trying to escape. Sacrificing players is how the killer ensures a victory for themselves, whereas the survivors need to escape in order to win. It's actually been around for a while, but I feel like right now there's a lot of hype. Number 2, Mortal Kombat. We've seen other famous and iconic characters from pop culture integrated into Mortal Kombat's League of Combatants before. So why not add in some of the most fearsome FNAF characters who might be fit to compete? Among them, I feel like Circus Baby and Ennard could have some pretty brutal finishing moves, with Ennard perhaps wearing you like a suit before like bursting out of you. I'm just saying, the lore and some of the deaths in FNAF, like William Afton aka Springtrap's fate, might lend well to some Mortal Kombat finishing move inspirations. We might get some cool stuff out of that. Number 1, Fortnite. Of course, the game that everyone would love to see get some FNAF content would be Fortnite. Fortnite has a history of teaming up with various different established IPs and franchises to bring you all sorts of fun thematic characters, stories, maps, items, and full-on seasons. And I'm sure there is some overlap in player demographics there, so this is just a crossover that makes like a lot of sense. I'm personally surprised that it hasn't already happened yet. I feel like it should have at this point. Rumors have been swirling though, and leaks abound that, there might be a crossover happening in the near future between those two games. So this is one we could very well actually see sometime, maybe even later in 2021.
This idea started for me when I thought about how souls in some ink monsters allowed them to persist after death, and how the ink machine would go about accomplishing such a task. I mean, we still don't know. Out of the thousands of souls that I've taken, I haven't been able to infuse them into many objects. So how could this machine do it consistently? The solution seemed to come to me thanks to Five Nights at Freddy's. Agony. For you Bendy fans, if you don't know, possession in the FNAF universe is actually through the emotion of agony rather than an actual soul, since agony is the most powerful emotion and reaches further from the body than any other emotion, even anger or sadness. So when a character in the FNAF universe suffers an agonizing death, that pain and suffering is able to allow them to potentially possess an object, an animatronic, or otherwise, even sometimes a person, as we see in one case. Yeah, there's a person who was possessed in the FNAF series. So if this ink machine is able to infuse these characters with souls, maybe instead the machine is killing these sacrifices and using their agony to grab hold of the character that the machine creates. It explains why a few characters who have a soul are mostly evil. I mean, they've suffered tremendous pain. And while evil Alice says that she went through the machine multiple times, she could be lying. She's evil. Or the agony attached onto that specific section of ink, thus letting it go through the machine again and again, instead of the whole "a drop of water in the ocean is rarely seen again" mentality that we see come from good Alice. But that's not really enough evidence to definitively say that Bendy and FNAF are the same universe, right? I mean, it's not even evidence, it's just potential. Is there anything else that gives us an explanation in another game, or vice versa? Actually, it could explain how William Afton plans to escape the virtual world in Security Breach. Now, we know that William is trying to escape the FNAF VR game we test, known as Freddy Fazbear's Virtual Experience, and this is because while he may be able to control certain individuals, like Vanny for instance, he cannot control them completely, as we see in the FNAF AR emails, so he wants to get out and get back to his world. How could he do this? Well, how about with equipment similar to the ink machine? While yes, it wouldn't really be the ink machine itself, a machine that is capable of infusing something with a soul or agony like we see the ink machine do, could very well be what allows William to move from the virtual world back into a robotic endoskeleton, or something similar like we see in the last seconds of the Security Breach trailer. Since converting sentient computer code into a living AI in a sense is certainly easier said than done. I mean, this isn't Doki Doki Literature Club, right? So what machine could this be? It's Honestly, hard to tell. It could be anything. However, it could be made using similar or scrapped parts from the ink machine, or gone through whatever process caused the ink machine to get haunted or whatever it had to go through to gain its powers in the Bendy games. And they could be from the same manufacturer, or they could just honestly, it could just be the ink machine itself. Now, do I think it's going to be the ink machine? Absolutely not. It would just be another machine that we have that would link to the ink machine in some way, but I don't think it's entirely out of the question. I mean, it's definitely not going to be intentional, but hey, it's fun anyway. Bendy and the Ink Machine started in 2017, which is 3 whole years after FNAF released its first game, and is the year after Sister Location came out. Plus, later that year we got Pizzeria Simulator, which could have some subtle references to Bendy and the Ink Machine that we just aren't aware of. So while it's still unlikely that we end up getting a solid, confirmed canon link between these games, it's still fun to speculate and provide answers for questions using the laws of another universe. But I guess at this point, it's not another universe at all.